Welcome home. We are WNST. Towson, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We're positively going to be at Fadley's on Friday. Not just this Friday, but every Friday. We were going to do the Maryland Crab Cake Tour there before the Mariners game, but instead just crab races, real crabs, Maryland crabs, not the mechanical crabs, though I'm sure they're nice crabs. My favorite crab is that one at BWI, that big glass crab. Pac-Man scratch-offs will be given away. Crab cakes will be eaten. Beer will be had by some of us without press credentials. Some of us are working. I'm trying to corral Luke into being a crab jockey along with BJ Surhoff. Dude, you don't want to get into any competition with BJ Surhoff. But if you do, come one, come all. There is a crab picking contest as well at Fadley's. And, of course, our Maryland Crab Cake Tour brought to you by our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions, delicious clean water, as well as Jiffy Lube Multi-Care. This guy is multidimensional. Not just covering the Orioles each and every day that they have walk-offs and sometimes not walk-offs, and hope they don't leave as many guys on the sacks this weekend against the Mariners. The NFL schedule is out. Luke Jones was monitoring that. Luke, you do know I used to be obsessed with this, right? So, I'm going to be tongue-in-cheeky a little bit. We'll get through this together, you and I. I'm just trying to figure out whether I have subscriptions, which games I'm going to have to go to the casino to watch. Times have changed, Luke. I don't know what to say. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, the schedule's out, and it's a first place schedule. It's a schedule that you get when you're an AFC champion, and it's also for the Ravens. I looked at a bunch of the games and I'm like, oh, that's a $250 get in. When the Bills are here, when the Eagles are here, I don't know about the Commanders, but I mean, when I think of the stadium being empty sometimes and not empty other times, and whether that's a good night or a bad night, and what the draw would be and who the other quarterback is, it's a schedule. But I think from a fan's perspective, the Christmas thing, the fireworks part of it is very fireworksy.
Yeah, I mean, as we joke about every year, it's so funny to think about this in the terms of what this has become. And I mean, you alluded to trying to find all the leaks, right? And trying to figure out all the games before it's actually announced years and years ago. I mean, what it's become in terms of hype, in terms of all these teams with their social media videos, and some are good, some are not so good, but it's a big deal for everyone. And as I've always said, even though the hype for it to me has kind of spiraled to be too much, especially when we're at a point where we're just leaking games and having a whole week-long build up to it, it is great to finally know. It is good to kind of be able to plan out, not just from a media standpoint for guys like you and me, but for fans, and understanding what weekends you're going to be home, what weekends are going to be away, what are the road trips that you potentially want to take, what time of the year do they fall. But
that was certainly one of the reasons I was most offended,
schedule.
by the way, with my press credential, was that I lived my life around this, right? Like, I defined my life every minute of every day that you've known me. And that's one of the reasons I always sought it out, and I pissed them off, and I broke the news, and we sent the text out. All the kids can Google that. Anybody that's been around here knows I was obsessed with getting the schedule before anyone, because it really was kind of like that important to my real life and to road trips and to fun and to whether I could be at friends' weddings and stuff like that. Stuff that, like, that's how seriously I took it. And I respect that. And that's why it's a big deal, right? That's why, the comedians doing videos with John Harbaugh running around is like, they've recognized that the fans have a real appetite for this, because fans live it, eat it, sleep it, breathe it, travel it, hotel it, hook up with relatives, friends. The guys book their golf trip, like all of that, right? Like, and because I've lived it, I've seen it. It really is a big deal. I mean, they've found a way to make a buck on it, but fans love it. I as a traveling guy, first thing I said to my wife is, they're playing in LA Thanksgiving week, and I'm like, oh, Thanksgiving's later. This is like before Thanksgiving. So I look at it, even though I'm not going on these trips, and I know people make memories around this. It's really important to people. It's important to
me. It's important to people, and they eat it up. And we've talked about it, whether we're talking about Thursday games, whether we're talking about Christmas Day afternoon games on Netflix. I mean, one of the weirdest things that when they announced that the Ravens were playing the Texans on Christmas Day, and obviously Kansas City's taking on the Steelers. Why isn't there a Christmas night game? You know what I mean? Like that's so odd to me that if you're going to have two Christmas games, you're not putting one of them in prime time, and you're just saying, "Oh, we don't care about people who have plans with their family. But they probably don't like their family and they want to watch football." And that's the NFL's mindset with all of this. I mean, they are going to continue to test whatever you want to call it, exclusivity, scarcity principle, whatever it is, whatever has made the NFL absolute king in this country from a professional sports landscape, where they're number one, and as we joke, the NFL offseason is number two in this country. I mean, it's nothing else is even close, but they are going to continue to test that and stretch that to its very limits, and there are no signs of it slowing down to this point. I mean, it's just the truth. So when you have the schedule release and you see what it's become. I joked with you a couple weeks ago and even got some texts from some friends who thought it was really funny. I mean, are we going to get to the point where we have host cities for the schedule announcement party, like they do for the draft? I mean, at this point, nothing the NFL would do would surprise me. And I mean that in a compliment in some ways and not so flattering in other ways. But people eat it up and people were excited about it. And it's always, I will say, because I say a lot of this tongue in cheek and talking about some of these tent pole events that have just become so much bigger than what they actually feel like they should be, that, people want the context of knowing when these games are going to be played, and we talked about it. The countdown's on now. We're getting into OTA starting next week. Before you know it, mandatory minicamp will be here and they'll be off for their 5 weeks, between mini camp and the start of training camp. And then the countdown to Kansas City will be on. But, the point I was trying to make a few minutes ago was this is a challenging schedule. And I think if you look at it just through the lens of the home schedule, Las Vegas Raiders, one of the duds on the schedule. It's the home opener. I mean, it's the home opener. So there's always excitement there. You look at the home schedule, there is one game on the entire home schedule where I say, wow, I don't have much juice for that whatsoever. Denver. I mean, it's Nick's the rookie going to be the quarterback. I don't think it really matters. I think the Broncos are going to stink this year. And there's nothing about that team right now that is appealing. But every other game on the schedule, and like I said, because the Raiders fall on the home opener, you'd put the Raiders kind of in that same nondescript category. They're not terrible. They're not devoid of talent, but who's their quarterback going to be, right? You don't have a quarterback, it doesn't really matter. But every other game on the home schedule, when you talk about the Bills on Sunday Night Football in late September, the Commanders, even though I don't know if there's enough talent around him, I very much think they may have finally gotten their quarterback situation right. I really like Jaden Daniels a whole lot. Loved watching him in college. We'll see. But there's always some appeal with, the geographic proximity when the Commanders come to town. Cincinnati goes without saying. Thursday Night Football, second straight year. They're playing in Baltimore on a Thursday night. The Eagles, I mean, not just the teams on the field, but about the fact that Eric DeCosta and Howie Roseman are widely regarded as two of at least the top 4 or 5 general managers in the NFL, I think in many circles. So there's that. You have the Steelers right before Christmas on a short week and that stretch of 3 games in 11 days, which is going to be a major challenge for this football team as they're at that point hoping to win the division. You're hoping that they're in the race for the first round bye and the number 1 seed. We'll see. But then they close up against Cleveland. So, I mean, it's top to bottom. It's an attractive schedule. And I think from a fairness standpoint, you don't see any of those stretches where you have 3 straight road games. On the flip side, there's only one instance of back-to-back home games when they played Denver and Cincinnati in 5 days, with that Thursday night game against the Bengals. So, I don't think there's anything about the schedule that jumps out as patently unfair, but it's challenging. As we said, there are a few pockets in that schedule where you say, okay, that's a slam dunk. That's a slam dunk. I mean, far from those stretches are very few. So, that's not to say that they're not going to be really good. I think this is going to be a heck of a football team again, even with some of the questions right now. But you look at the schedule, starting with going out to Kansas City for the NFL season opener. I mean, right off the bat, Zach Orr, good luck. First game as an NFL defensive coordinator. You're going up against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Kelsey. So it's certainly going to be a
There's
challenge.
nothing about it when I look at it that gives me warm fuzzies. You know what I mean? Just in a general sense of we're better than them. I look at the tough parts of this and say there's stretches here, including if you lose the first game. You win the first game, you're smelling a whole lot different for a period of time, and everybody sees that game. Everybody saw the Lions, play well. You remember when that happens because it's a defining game, and certainly, you're not shocked they began this, or you are? Like, if I'd have given you $1, we were together in Sarasota. If I would have said it's the game of the year, I think we'd all agree with that, right? It's the best game they're going to have on their calendar, and Kansas City's going to host the opener. I would have thought they would have brought Harbaugh in there and done something different. I didn't really think. I thought they would save this one for Christmas, but there is a point where if one of the quarterbacks is injured, a lot less likelihood where these guys are babied into August that they can make it to the field and they can get their stars on the field, which I still think maybe it's morose of me or morbid of me, but when the schedule comes out, I do look at it and say, I wonder if Herbert and Jackson will be on the field that night. I wonder in Houston, two quarterbacks, that's what they want. They hope, they cross their fingers. It's always awful when it can be a hamstring. It doesn't need to be anything catastrophic, just like something that keeps a player out. That's always the worry that the early part of the matchups, I think they get that. But they sold out on this one, right? Like, I mean, biggest game of the year, first night. That's the modern NFL, right? I mean, maybe I should have bet more heavily on that.
Yeah, I mean, for a minute I thought it was possible you could see the Chargers and Harbaugh and playing off of Michigan and knowing what kind of fan base there is there with him leaving college and going back to the NFL. But look, I mean, you told me back in January that Ravens Chiefs would lead off the NFL season. That's not surprising, right? I mean, the Ravens are on prime time 5 times, 7 national television games in all when you count the Netflix game on Christmas and their Saturday game with the Steelers immediately preceding that. And, that's a national TV game on Fox, even though it's a late afternoon game.
Only surprising they didn't play the game in Brazil so they can make more money on it and punish the people of Kansas City for not giving them a stadium.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's a challenging schedule. And, the point you made where no one's trying to be pessimistic or to jinx anyone or anything like that. But since you brought it up, talking about the injuries and where teams are late in the season, it dawned on me the other day looking at this. So Joe Burrow entered the league in 2020, right? So he's been in the league 4 years now. We know Lamar beat him by a couple years in terms of entering the NFL. But since Joe Burrow entered the league in 20, there has not been a season where both Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow finished it healthy. Think about it. Joe Burrow, ACL in 20. Lamar hurt in 21 and 22. Burrow wrist injury last November. So just forget about the rest of the league. And we know that quarterback attrition was a major storyline last year with Cousins and all these different guys going down with injuries. Aaron Rodgers, 3 snaps into the season?
Yeah, and then they come back and put them on Monday Night Football a dozen times, right?
Well, I mean, it's the Jets, it's New York, it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they do have a talented football team. If they can get decent quarterback play from someone, whether it's him coming back or whatever, fine. But the point
Joe
is,
Flacco.
Sorry. Well, he might be playing in Indy if Anthony Richardson can't stay healthy. But it is really wild when you think about that. Just for the AFC North, the two teams that you have viewed as the top teams in the division, with Pittsburgh being a quarterback away from being in that conversation in recent years. But to think that 4 straight years, either Burrow or Lamar have been on the sideline at the end of the year. I mean, that right there, you're talking about 2 of the best consensus top 5 quarterbacks in football. And one of them have been hurt each of the last 4 years at the end of the year. I mean, that's just, you don't want that. So, there's a perfect example to going back to your original point as far as Mahomes and Lamar. Who knows what's going to happen to any of these teams? So when you have a matchup that is that attractive, and you have the Chiefs opening up the season as the Super Bowl champions, and you have the team that faced them in the AFC title game, the team that was the best team in the NFL during the regular season, I don't think that was shocking. For me, it was more so, okay, to your point, do you try to save that for later in the year, like like a Christmas game if you're trying to make Netflix really happy. But Netflix ended up getting both those teams anyway on Christmas Day. They're just facing different opponents. So, but it's it's a challenging schedule. At the same time, the Ravens ended up having a really challenging schedule last year. I mean, let's look at how the end of the season played out and how they ran that gauntlet in such emphatic fashion. So through that lens, yeah, you got to stay healthy. And one point we haven't brought up yet that I'd be remiss without mentioning, their bye is not until December 8th. This is the
Yeah, well,
latest.
that was my second point. The first point
Yeah.
was the first things that jump out to me. First thing was, when are they playing in LA? That's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
And is that Thanksgiving? It's sort of the kickoff to, hey, Thanksgiving's coming. Because you knew they were going to do the Thanksgiving thing with that, because that's who they are as well. Getting the hardballs together, they market. The Christmas night game and the Pittsburgh thing and the chunking of really key games on short-ish rest at the latest time of the year. They do give them a bye to kind of get it together a little bit. But I looked at that and I'm like, dude, that's putting the bumper cars on late. You know what I mean? That's when you put the pads on Friday afternoon practice. You're like, what are we doing? There's are big boy games late in the year where if you are, oh man, I don't know, 9-6, 8-7, 10-5, and you say we're 9-5, and you say, man, if we're going to get to 12 or 13, we got to win 3 or 4 of these, right? And I looked at those games and thought, that's treacherous. And at the end of the year, and when everybody, and it's not about, is Lamar going to be hurt or in or out. You always say Lamar's what it is. If he's hurt, they doesn't matter, right? And you're
It's
right
over.
about
Yeah.
that. But what if he's banged up? What if other guys are bad? The bang, not what if, they'll be banged up.
Sure.
That's my point. They'll be banged up. You're like, bye. I'm thinking, and listen, schedule comes out. In their mind, they're 11-1 at the bye and feeling real good. And they'd like to go get these games, and they're the best team like they were last year. And like the Orioles are almost every night, they're the best team. And they would say, everybody's healthy and we're good. And that's optimism. And I'm all for that. Realism is, I've been watching this for all my life, but 30 years of the Ravens now. And to your point, I mean, the quarterback lives on the edge. That's why they got Derrick Henry. By the way, Derrick Henry jersey. Hold on, I got it right. Oilers jersey. I found it. I got one that was damaged in some way. I think it's like a miscut or something like that. It was only like $48. It's
Hmm.
Oiler blue. Have I mentioned this? It's Oiler blue.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah. Yeah.
I was on so I'm looking, but because Derrick Henry's going to be probably my all-time favorite Raven at this point, right? Because I'll never meet him one way or another, but I'll dig him from afar. That he should keep Lamar healthier. That's part of this, right? Is believing Lamar won't be box card. And we've moved beyond that to something more traditional where he's not running 18 times a game.
Well,
So, or ever, no matter what, they have a guy for that. And a guy who's done it. And a guy's going to the Hall of Fame probably for doing it and wants to end it with a parade here, which is all good. But the bad, his schedule's out and they got box cars at the end. They really do. I mean, this is a tough schedule. I think in my own mind, it's a tough road. It has to be. Will teams get better? Yeah. Will they move back to the pack? I don't know. I mean, took after, to your point, they took their coaching staff. They're missing players, the offensive line. We have all these. It's May. Harbaugh thinks they're going to be 11-1 at the bye or whatever the math works out to be, and they'll be okay. But I did look at the end of the schedule and thought, and I saw the internet, thought, that's unfair. They hate us. But, you got to play tough ones sometimes. But short notice, Thursday night, Christmas. Yeah, I don't love that week.
yeah. I mean, that week's challenging. There's no question about that. I mean, as it pertains to the other Thursday night games they have, I mean, Cincinnati, that they're at home, so the Bengals will be on a short week too, and the Bengals have to come into Baltimore. Thursday night game to kick off the season. That's not a real Thursday night game because you have plenty of time, right? I mean, the third preseason game is August 24th now, so you have plenty of time to build for that. But going back to the bye, as I always say, the bye comes. When's the best time for the bye? When you need it, right? So it could be week 6, depending on the season. If Lamar tweaks his ankle in week 2, or you've got 3 starters on defense that are dealing with 3 or 4 week injuries right out of Jump Street, right out of the gate, then week 6 might be the best time for your bye. I'll say this, and we talked about this last year, Nestor. If you can stay relatively healthy up until week 14 when they finally have their bye, then it does set up to give yourself an advantage to have your break that late in the season. And yes, that is a bear of an 11-day stretch when you play at the Giants, which, I don't think the Giants are going to be any good, but it's still a road game. And then you play the Steelers on a short week, and then you play Houston on the road on a very short week, right? I mean, the Saturday to Wednesday, it's just like Sunday to Thursday. So when on the flip side, they will have some extra rest after that game. We'll see what that week 18 game against Cleveland, when they're going to play it. 2, where will the Browns be? Where will the Ravens be? What will either of those teams be playing for at that point? But you will get some rest there on the back end of that terrible stretch. So, the late season bye potentially can be it can very much be an advantage for January, but it is a long way to that point. So can you stay relatively healthy? And like I said, early season bye, mid-season bye, late season bye, it all comes down to when do you need it? When are you at your most banged up over the course of the season? Sometimes a week 6 bye can be exactly what you need. Sometimes middle of the season makes sense. But if you can navigate the schedule and be mostly intact come the second weekend in December, then that bye week could really be fruitful for them in terms of giving them some rest, giving them a chance to heal up before, they have that 11-day gauntlet. And then you're looking towards what I think we all expect, which is this team to be back in the postseason, regardless of whether it's number 1 seed or taking down Cincinnati for the division or wild card, whatever it is. I think even if you're on the more pessimistic side, think you'd have a tough time looking at this football team and not thinking they're going to be in the playoffs at the minimum. But you have to stay healthy. You have to go out there and play the games. And as we said, challenging schedule. They play 10 games. And I'm not too big on this, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. 10 games against teams that were in the playoffs last year. So, there are not too many cupcakes on this schedule. And even the ones that you think are, you never know. I mean, Houston was a great example of this last year. Week 1, felt like they were getting a layup, and the game ended up being a relatively easy win, but they ended up playing that team in the divisional round then come January. So you never quite know, but certainly John Harbaugh's team is going to be tested. And in terms of winning percentage from a year ago, again, it's interesting now. Does it mean a whole lot come the fall? Probably not, but second most difficult schedule in terms of opponents' winning percentage in 2023.
All right, let's go old school here. I used to spend a lot of money on the NFL. So Chad Steele told us we couldn't sit together. I took my seats back, about $3,000. So that's back on my side of the fence. There were flights that would have been to LA. Where else we flying? We had Kansas City, Houston. Luke, you tell your family no go on Christmas this year. You and I are leaving on the 23rd. We're going to do 3 days in Houston. We're going to fart. We're going to eat Mexican food. It's going to be delicious. I'm going to take you over to Papacitos. We're going to get you some crawfish. You and I did spend a week together in Houston, didn't we? We did. You and I have been old school. So speaking of that, I want to drop this on you because this is why I'm putting all this money together. I didn't spend any of this money. That's my point, right? And this is the point I was making to Mr. Rubenstein's representative. Is like, I'd like to start spending money. Like I stimulate the economy. I went down to CFG Bank Arena the other night and had some fun at the Hart and Cheap Trick show. And I'm Mr. Baltimore Positive and like all that stuff. So I have all of this like money I used to spend on the Ravens. I don't spend anymore. So I'm going to ask, this is a fair question for you. How much is too much to spend on a gamer jersey to wear if you don't go to the games, if you sit on the couch with 15 St. Bernards like your buddy down there in Orlando, and you're going to watch the game with proper dip, proper pizza, spot. We're going to do it upright. Go to Wise Markets, get me some of that rice pudding that I love, Mr. Ron's rice pudding. And I need to have a jersey to wear, right? Like you famously, when I met you wearing a Haloti Ngata jersey. I don't know if there's a picture of you and I before that. Maybe you
That's
came to the
right.
barn or something. You're wearing the Haloti, not a gamer. So at this point in time, knowing that, I'm not as affluent as I was once perceived to be, and I'm a cheapskate, but I'm not a jerk. But I have I had you're this reason I ask you this. You're Mr. Fashion Tweet guy. Like this, this is your shtick, okay? So I'm giving you your shtick here in a segment where we really don't want to talk about the schedule anymore, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about the football team later. So I'm getting into mode of I would have put $1,800 on the credit card last night booking flights to Kansas City, LA. I still would have had my companion pass. I would have figured it out. My wife, before she got thrown out and was told she can no longer fetch sound for us as an organization. So all of the things that I used to do for years and years, I mean, for 26 years, however long it was. So I have how much is too much for me to spend on a jersey that I like, that I would actually wear, that would fit me, hopefully fit me. That's the most important part. Um, and I have this jersey up here, and I want to know if I'm being a cheapskate or not. So, what would make you click? What's the go? Because I don't do $200 on jerseys. You know
Yeah,
this.
I was just
I
gonna
don't even do
say.
anything three digits. That Louis Aparicio whites, I paid $70 for that. It's a $300 jersey, but like my Dan Pastorini, when I told Dan I got it for $25, he felt dirty. He felt like that's not enough for that jersey, and I said that's why I bought it. So I'm still waiting on an Earl Campbell white because I haven't found it at the right price at the right size, and I'm a discerning shopper. So I found something here that I think I can click. Can I show it to you?
Yeah,
Let me
yeah,
show it
go
to you.
for it.
This is the Derrick Henry Oiler. It's a travesty. It's so dirty. I mean, I almost don't want to touch it, but it's so beautiful. I want to wear it. Kind of like how Mike Tomlin felt about me in the video. So this is available, and it says it has a flaw. Um, and it's willing to accept best offer. How much should I offer for that? I mean, I'm thinking it's worth $30 for me.
I mean, do you know what the flaw is? I feel like this is the episode of Seinfeld where there's the cashmere sweater and there's a red dot on it, which
Hold
you
on
won't get that
here.
reference because you didn't
Oh,
watch
oh,
it.
oh, whoa, 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 whoa! It has a flaw. No, it has a stain. It doesn't have a flaw. It has a stain. One of the twos has a little bit of Derrick Henry's blood on it. That's not Derrick Henry's blood. That's Houston Texan blood, is what that is.
You
That's
know,
not Oiler blood.
I'm. I'll be honest. I
I
don't
don't
want to say.
wash out, dude.
I don't want to say I'm disappointed in you, but I'm surprised because we talked about this and you
Oh, I
talked about
hated
how
it.
off
I That's what I'm
how
saying. It's
off-putting the
Yeah, I
Titans
hated it.
wearing the
But
Houston
the fact
Oilers.
that it's him, the fact that it's it.
Sure, I got
Listen,
you.
he is a king,
He is.
right? Sporting Kings are racing here this week. He's a king. He's King Henry. I've always had like the world's worst man crush on him, right?
Yeah, I
So my
think. I mean,
story with my man crush on him goes back to him at Alabama, where I was out having my wife was fighting for her life in the hospital. It was 15, and Stan Jablonski, who's been on the show, one of my childhood friends, was home taking care of his parents, and he wanted to go to Squires. We went to Squires, and I'm sitting in the bar in Squires, and I'm looking up, and this dude's just running. It must have been a weird. I probably could go back and because I'm like Mary Lou Henner, I could figure out what weekend in October of 15 it was or November because those were dark, dark days. I left the
mhm.
hospital to go over and have a pizza. He was trying to cheer me up, keep me alive, and this big dude from I'm like I, I watched the third and fourth quarter of I don't know who they played, and he was just running. It reminded me of the scenes from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And I'm not, me, I'm not an Alabama guy, although I'm a Phil Savage guy, I'm a CJ Mosley guy. I've always liked a lot of the Alabama guys. But like I'm not a Nick Saban guy, and I certainly actually three of my cousins went to Alabama. Now that like all of my Aparicio cousins went to Alabama, all of them. So I have bloodlines. I dated a beautiful British girl from Alabama. So but I always rooted against them. I never really rooted for. I always rooted for Auburn. Certainly, always rooted for Ole Miss. Yeah, I mean, I always rooted for Georgia. I hated Alabama. I know. I'm trying to think it. Miami, Notre Dame. I mean, some teams I don't like or patently don't like. Duke, but they don't play football. Um, don't tell Baldinger I said that. He'll kill me. I take that back. Edit that out. Stop. If Baldy hears that, it's all over between us. But I guess the greater point in all of this would be, I for $50, I can have a jersey to wear I don't think I'm going
Yeah,
to do it. I don't know, but it is a beautiful jersey, you know?
I was gonna say, I mean, if it's truly legit, other than a stain on the number, I don't think 50 bucks is a terrible price. But I don't know if it's truly legit. I mean, you mentioned my Haloti Nada jersey from way back when. I was the king of going on eBay at that point in time. I mean, again, this was 15, 20 years ago
Hold
when I
on.
was
Did you
doing
buy
this
the
stuff.
baby blue jerseys that look fake purple
Not
that
the
bled
baby.
all
No,
over you?
if you knew what you were looking for, you didn't buy the baby blue. You would actually buy something that looked as legitimate as it could possibly look. And I was successful. I got a white Ray Lewis one that the only thing I didn't love about it was the position of the TV numbers, the numbers up on the shoulder pads. It was a little bit, those were a little further back than they should have been, but it was something that to the casual person, it looked perfect. I have a black stitched alternate Ed Reed jersey that someone would think I paid $250 for, and I think I paid 60 for. And the Haloti Nada one, which was the purple, and again, I got that for 60 or 70 bucks, and someone would look at that and think that was a $300 jersey. So I was very good at, you know, there were plenty of that I would have in my cart and then say, nope, not getting that, not bidding on that. So
I paid like
it
ten
was a,
dollars too much for my Tony Gwynn out on the baseball tour
I mean, if it's
because it
only
was
$10, that's not really,
no, but
$10
like I may have
is,
paid like 119 when I thought like I didn't want to go over 80 or 90, but
yeah,
I'm like I could wear it because it feels nice.
yeah,
Like I could put that on over my skin, no t-shirt, no nothing, and it doesn't give me the heebie-jeebies, the itchies that I'm on fire. Dude, the Aparicio orange one, it was not made for a 98-degree day that I wore the other
sure.
day. And that's why this one, I'm only going to have this one on literally in my house when I'm
Yeah,
working from, like, it's just going to be a goof. And I might put it on with you on the show. It's a goof. That's my point, is I don't care if it's flawed as long as it doesn't smell bad and as long as it fits, because like
yeah,
I'm really not goofing. I love the Oiler thing, but I loved him, right? So like, and you're going to be all over my ass if he runs the ball 18 times for 42 yards and fumbles twice and he's a bomb, because like he's my guy. Come on, dude. You know me 2 decades. Who have I jumped on the table more for this guy that once we get into this and he starts rolling pin people, I'm going to be the one that Chad Steele's going to have to listen to on Monday talking about them winning the Super Bowl because of that guy. So there is a point that for 50 bucks, I went through the math of this, right? PSLs, 513, row one, how much money I've saved, where I'm not going, how I'm not invited. Add Super Bowl. That's another thing we don't do anymore. Now I'm doing it for charity. It's all good because do like to catch up with what I'm doing around here. I think it's $49.98 right now, and I think I could bid 30, maybe 35, and just get it and just take a chance that maybe it doesn't. I mean, if it smells, I think I could wash it. The stain, I think my wife could shout it out. What do you think?
yeah. I mean, honestly, if you're willing to spend 30 or 35, I'd say go to 40 then. I mean,
There's no bad day to wear a Houston Oilers
yeah.
throwback, except when you're playing the Houston Texans in Tennessee. That's a bad day to wear it for me,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right? I
I
mean,
mean that,
I'm not in any way condoning that act. And McLean and I went back and forth.
right.
Pastorini, some players loved it, some players hated it. I was appalled by it when I actually saw it, even though it's beautiful. But that being said, do I want to wear this? Do I want to wear King Henry's jersey all year long to sort of somehow show my support for the fans of the Ravens, while not necessarily, even as a journalist, supporting Eric DeCosta, John Harbaugh? I said hello to Pat Moriarty the other night. He was glad he saw me. I bought him and his wife Lynn drinks actually. So I love Pat Moriarty. You know why? Because he's art. And so I had some fun this week. So it's Raven season and the schedule's out, and it's my life's changed dramatically by the act of one person, dramatically, and I'm making the most of it. And to me, 49 bucks maybe on the King Henry jersey might be fun for me. But that's the fun of doing this, right? It's the fun of I'm going to get a jersey and I'm going to wear it to Kansas City and we're going to eat ribs and I'm going to ask Nestor where the best rib spots are because he knows and I do. Also, I find you some really good Korean shaved ice on that LA trip. And Houston, I got a breakfast place with catfish and grits that'll kill you. It almost killed me. I almost got killed walking out of there last year. Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore, Luke. It's Preakness weekend. It's schedule week. I've been a little fun and irreverent here this week because it's been an interesting behind-the-scenes party this week as well around here. But Bob Baffert, Donna Brothers. I made friends with Kenny Rice. I brought on Dick Girardi this week. Lots of old friends. We're going to be doing the crab races at Fadley's, even though I'm wearing the Coco's shirt, because we're going to be at Coco's. Marcella doesn't know it yet, but we're going to be there in June. I'm trying to just get these dates together. I'm going to be at Costas in the middle of June. We're going to be at State Fair early June. Pappas in a couple of weeks. Pappas, by the way, is like they're doing all sorts of cool stuff, and I need to go over and get Jeannie and grab her and talk to her about things, because they're like doing some catering stuff that's cool and doing events as well. Our friends at the Maryland Lottery give me these Pac-Man scratch-offs to give away. I'll be doing that at the Crab Derby. I have my Don't pay any attention to the date. The date's now Friday the 17th, the Crab Derby. It's at the Lexington Market Plaza. And you know what I thought, Luke? I thought, why didn't they do it? It rained Wednesday. Do it inside the market. They're like, that's not the point. The point is we do it on the plaza outside. It's an outdoor event, like the horse race is an out. And I'm like, you're right. As long as BJ Surhoff's there, I'm there. Are you going to jockey a crab or are you not? Because if you can't, I get it.
Probably not.
I'll tell you this.
You sounded so disappointed.
Listen to me. I was as good at crab jockeying as I was at chasing the Northern Lights.
So that's not very good then.
It's been a long week. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We're done talking Ravens until they show up in Kansas City and show me the barbecue.